besides chanting Hare Krishna, it's recommended that one be attentive in chanting. And of course, this is the heavy lifting. And it's helpful to align oneself before chanting japa, just as one does when one worships the deity. There are various processes in deity worship, starting with gathering paraphernalia, and then there's what's called yoga, when one sits down to worship the deity with all the paraphernalia. There's a slight or a short session of meditation. So I'll lead you through that process, since we're here very deliberately to chant the holy names. And it's very helpful to start with this meditation. You'll get it later because I just gave the PDF to everybody, so you can review it on your own afterwards. But for now, if you'd like, you can repeat and just maybe close your eyes and repeat after me. This is a standard Bhuta Shuddhi. Bhuta means the elements of our body, the senses, the material construction of the body is purified by meditation. I am by nature the eternal servant of Krishna. But by misfortune, due to being inimical towards him, since time immemorial, I have been wandering within the cycle of birth and death in the material world, being burnt by the threefold miseries. Now, as a result of some unimaginable good fortune, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I know that I am an infinitesimal living being, completely apart from the gross and subtle body. Now, by the order of my spiritual master, I have obtained the good fortune of serving his lotus feet, as well as the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the holy names. And then, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya or a Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha, or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. And now, still with your eyes closed, a quick meditation that Prabhupada gives us in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 2nd chapter, 35th verse. Close your eyes. And just for a moment, notice your hands. And notice you can bring your attention to your hands, and then to your head, to your feet. And now notice that you're the seer of your hands, your head, and your feet, and therefore you're not any of those material elements, nor are you your material body. And now, from the perspective of the seer, notice any thoughts that are going through your mind. And notice that you're the seer of your thoughts. And therefore, you're aloof from them. You're not your thoughts. And from this position of aloofness, as the witness of the body, the kshetragya, make a spiritual sankalpa, which means to say to yourself internally your purpose today for chanting the Maha Mantra. For instance, Krishna, please engage me in your service. Please empower me to associate with devotees. Whatever it may be, make your sankalpa. And I'll read one more passage from Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam. When the mind acts under the spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life in complete bliss and eternity. Therefore, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that one is, in all circumstances, a servant of Krishna. And now the gateway mantra from the Panchatattva, who allow us into the chanting of the names Hare Krishna and Rama. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna. Just a brief intervention before we finish the last part of the japa. That is that Prabhupada gives the metaphor that chanting, according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the work of a gardener. And then he says that when we chant, we can also be watering in our garden the weeds that grow. And he gives Dāsa Prabhupada an elaborate description of these weeds. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gives a catalog of various kinds of desires. So the recommended process for not letting the weeds grow is to neglect them. We call tender, loving neglect. So it's one thing to chant and to then entertain various desires, that what's going to happen in the future, what do I want, or lamenting over the past. And it's another to be aware of the fact that there are these various thoughts coming into the mind, and then being aloof from them and not watering them with the chanting. It means don't mix them together. You can notice them, but don't entertain them or grab onto them or chase them. Just let them go. Don't water them with the chanting. And this is what Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport that's in the section of the Gudicha Marjana, is the difference between chanting in which one makes progress and chanting where one doesn't make progress. So one of the ways that Prabhupada talks about how to be aware of your thoughts and your internal environment in the verse I mentioned earlier, 2:235, in his purport, is to also notice the power of your senses. And if you just take a moment now to notice that you have the power of seeing, as Prabhupada mentions, and then he says, notice that you're not providing that power, someone else is. And he calls that in his purport the super spirit. Same as super soul, but he gives that name super spirit. Krishna's there presiding over the senses, he's Vaiśeṣika. And he says in that purport that if one can notice that the power of our power to see, to hear, to feel, any of the knowledge or working senses, knowledge gathering or working senses, we can notice that they're all empowered by Krishna, then we can become more aware of the fact that Krishna's overseeing everything. And when we're in that state of consciousness, that Krishna's there, when we're noticing any kind of thought, material desire coming in besides just hearing the holy name, we can take shelter of Krishna and offer whatever's there and say, Krishna, I'm helpless to get rid of these material desires, if you would kindly help me to weed them out of the garden. That very request means that we're very attentive in chanting, and it's very effective as Krishna's there as vidunoti. But it's not just by mindless chanting, but being very aware that we want Krishna, we don't want other things, and discriminating between those things. That's the work of the gardener. You don't just water all the weeds, but you specifically neglect them, and you're very careful to pull them out. In this case, praying to Krishna, please let me overcome them, even if they seem impossible to take out myself, can be very effective. Any reflection or question? Just two, and then we'll finish. Good to have human interaction. Reflection from your chanting today, or any of the points that I brought up from Prabhupada's purport? Yes?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Give him a little more power.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, devotees here. One thing you talked about, Maharaj, was the fact that material desires will show up in our mind, and it's our choice whether to let them grow or let them be neglected. Somebody once told me before I came here to the Dham that the Dham is so powerful that whatever you desire could really come true there. So be very careful what you desire. So I was just thinking that as my material desires try to pop up, that I should really focus on what matters here while we're in the Dham and not focus on distractions.
Thank you very much. One more. Unamas. Reflection. Yes?
Yeah, it's a very good point you mentioned, that to neglect all which is distracting our mind and not to give in to those things which are not leading us to Krishna consciousness. Very much. Thank you very much.
Another way to look
sharing.
at it is procrastinate. Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
Yeah.
You had more to say. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Just the concept of procrastination. Has anybody ever procrastinated anything? So there is an application of procrastination that's not bad. And that is, we're used to procrastinating things that seem hard. At least I am. You don't want to talk to somebody, or you got something to write and you do something else instead and put it off. So this neglect can also be in the form of procrastination, where you just say, okay, I see it, it's there, but I won't act upon it. I just let it go. We know how to procrastinate. So this is applied procrastination. Just apply the procrastination to those thoughts, desires that are contrary to our spiritual progress. Don't feed them. Don't give them attention. Notice them. Just see that they're there, and it's like, not now, maybe some other time, and then just move on. Thank you. Very important point you brought up. Let's try chanting with this idea. If you just remember what Prabhupada said is, notice the power of your senses is coming from a higher source. Be aware of the fact that Krishna is there with you in your heart. And then when you're chanting, be very aware of whatever comes into your mind and be aloof from it. Don't water it. Don't chase it. Go back to Krishna, take shelter, and let him please help me weed these out from my heart. Thank you, everyone. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Harinam Prabhu, if you so desire, please empower us to distinguish reality from illusion so that we can chant your names with full intention and also help others overcome the illusion of the material world. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. All glories to the Maha Mantra. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Krishna.